You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit nyl.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NyLife Securities, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, there's one flashy local election this year that people are already paying attention to, the sprint for Pittsburgh mayor, which we may know the outcome of by this spring. But there are tons of other local offices that do really important things, and never enough people willing to run for office to fill them all. Today, we're talking about how first-timers can get themselves on local ballots with Spotlight PA's Min Shin. It's Tuesday, March 11th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Hi, Min. Welcome to CityCast Pittsburgh.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
So what types of positions are we talking about here? Like the ones that I guess see not as much competition here in PA?
There are so many different public roles on the ballot this year during the 2025 municipal election, including judicial positions, school board seats, and municipal board members. Personally, I think financial offices like tax collectors and auditors generally receive less attention than those other seats that we're probably more familiar with in local governments. And to add to that, I think it's worth pointing out that depending on which type of municipality you're living in, the powers of any given seat might vary. So think about a mayor of a borough, which there are 96 of in Allegheny County, might have different decision-making authorities than a mayor in a borough with a home rule charter like Bethel Park. So it all goes back to the feature of local autonomy in Pennsylvania. There are many, many people that help maintain that local government system.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about that a fair amount on this show. Like in Pennsylvania, you cannot have unincorporated land. Like everything has to be official and on the books. Not a single square inch in the state isn't like counted, as being part of something.
That's right.
Which means that you end up with a lot of people in charge to make all the things happen. Why do you think that there isn't more interest in some of these jobs that, as you say, like they do a lot of big things?
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that we would all be very baffled if there was ever just one presidential candidate in an election. And just intuitively, I think we can all agree that having competition in any election is fundamentally important because voters will get to hear different opinions about governance and actually have a choice in who is the best to carry out public duties. So it's quite unfortunate that municipal officials running unopposed in both the primary and general elections is pretty commonplace in Pennsylvania. I think a big barrier is, of course, it's a time commitment for people.
You mean to serve or to run?
To serve, I think, especially when you're thinking about a lot of people are volunteering their time, even if you get paid as a township supervisor, we're talking about $100-some a month. That does not even begin to cover the hours and hours that would go into serving. While there is no requirement for public officials to have a background or experience in local government to be elected, there is a huge learning curve when you're thinking about all the kind of financial, legal responsibilities that goes into running local government.
Min, I thought we were here to talk people into doing this. I think so far we're making a case against it.
It is fun, though. It is so much fun, and it's totally worthwhile. But I think it's great, for anyone interested in public office to go in there having a very kind of level-headed view of what's ahead of them.
Yeah. Let's bring it to Allegheny County. We have the most municipalities in the state at 130. How do these vacancies affect local government? Like what happens if no one runs for office or maybe only one person does? Like, is that bad, I guess?
I mean, obviously, we don't want to see that. We need about 13,000 local officials to run all of the local governments in Pennsylvania. That's a lot. And it means that when people don't step up and help the local governments function, you have empty seats. A lot of times, vacancies will have to be appointed because when you have a board, you have to have odd numbers of people serving to break any ties. So generally, the rest of the board will appoint. And of course, then what would be otherwise a choice of the voters became a choice of other elected officials. And we can
So
talk
like one
about
or two people pick everything else for instead of, the entire electorate.
I think that's huge for the voters to consider, right? You want to see competition. You want to take the chance to be sure that your choice is made and not just a representative making the choice for you. And there are times when some communities would feel the impact, of course, when some offices that don't necessarily have to be manned go empty. You would absolutely feel the impact of that.
Like how so? Like are there services that don't get done, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when, you don't have a tax collector, then who goes around and pick up all the property tax checks?
Is that literally like a job? Like that's what a tax collector does? They drive to a place and pick up the check?
Not literally, perhaps, but electronically. It happens. But
you want somebody checking that box somewhere.
Exactly, right. You want people responsible to do those jobs, and it's so critical for the functioning of any given municipality.
Today's show is supported by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated. The CityCast crew just checked it out. It's so vivid. There are 15 panels from artist Kara Walker. If you're not familiar with her work, in this series, she places black silhouettes on top of old Harper's Weekly engravings. It's easy to forget now, but back in the day, illustrations like these were the main way a lot of people interpreted what it meant to be at war. There is a lot of patriotism and not a lot of the many free and enslaved black men and women who lived and fought and died during this war too. Also, the prints are paired with other Harper's Weekly illustrations, so you truly get a sense of how these stories were being told at the time. And because it's the Frick, a small bonus, they actually had the original bound copies of these Harper's Weekly illustrations. Like they were just in the house, handy, ready to go, and perfect for a show like Kara Walker's. The whole experience is just such a striking and visual reminder of what you often don't see in depictions of things like the Civil War. We highly recommend it. Get your tickets to Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, now through May 25th. And learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org. CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by Kesem. An estimated 5 million children are coping right now with a parent's cancer diagnosis. Being a kid is hard enough without extra anxiety or feelings of isolation or hopelessness that can come from really heavy stuff and just trying to process their caregiver's medical treatment. That's why Kesem is trying to support these kids with fun, creative, free programs and a summer camp that help uplift them no matter what comes next. And Kesem needs you to help them make the magic. Make the Magic is Kesem's annual fundraising gala where they bring local folks together for an evening of storytelling and performance, and most importantly, the chance to make a real difference for Pittsburgh kids. There are 2 opportunities for Make the Magic coming up. Kesem at the University of Pittsburgh is celebrating March 21st at Pitt's University Club, and Kesem at Carnegie Mellon University is throwing their gala the very next day, March 22nd, at the Convention Center downtown. Pick your team, Pitt or CMU, or hey, go to both. Get your tickets now at donate.kesem.org/PittsburghMTM25 or donate.kesem.org/CMUMTM25. Again, that's Kesem, Kesem, and be part of something truly magical. Make the magic, change a life. So we've established the problem, and I know you have been reporting with Spotlight PA on a solution. So getting more people to consider running for local government, knowing, of course, that there are lots of challenges and there can be a learning curve. What do you think is maybe the best or most convincing pitch that you've heard for why someone should think about doing this?
There is an argument made in a very old handbook about Pennsylvania local government that I think about a lot. And it essentially
You're really
says,
throwing it back. I love it.
I love it too. I love digging through the old documents. This line just always gets me. The amateur status of most elected officials is the backbone of local government in Pennsylvania, and local government is the foundation of the American system of democracy. And I just like to let that sink in a little.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what is it about an amateur that you think is maybe, gives someone an upper hand in this kind of environment?
I think because when people come from, all walks of life, serving on the boards of townships and boroughs and counties, they can bring a lot of different thinking, new thinking, and expertise, whether it's finance, business, engineering, planning, and development. All of those things would just ground your thinking as an elected official, as a leader of the community. And I also think that when people have personal stakes in their community, and we can look at the eligibility requirements to say that, the design for the local government offices are for people living in the community to serve on the board, there is a sense of responsibility that I think is very unique to local government, which is the closest level of government that we have in our lives. I think, I can personally pick up a phone and call our mayor, call our council members. That kind of access would not exist if you think about the state or even the federal government.
Well, and I think maybe too, just thinking about my own experience, as a reporter, I don't feel any fear or hesitation about calling a lawmaker and asking for things. It's kind of part of our job. But I do think it's good to remind regular people that don't have what you and I do for a living to fall back on. You can do that too. You can call and ask for things, and that's a good thing. And for some folks, I can imagine having an official office to do it as part of maybe makes that easier.
Right. And I think if you, grow up in an environment where you know exactly who your board of supervisors are, and you would just have a little bit more motivation to see them as real people, right? These leaders and elected officials of your community are people that you can talk to, you can vent to, you can pat them on the back. And I think having that kind of culture also encourages people to consider local office as a viable thing for them to do if they're interested.
So take it out of the Nextdoor feed and actually go do the thing.
Yeah.
You also have a story that kind of myth busts a little bit, maybe questions that people have about running for office or ideas of what they have, that you have to have a political background, for example, or specific training. I'm hoping you can tell me more about that. I guess what kinds of qualities make for a good candidate? Or maybe on the flip side, are there barriers that people think they have, but maybe that's not really a thing?
I think in a survey that I've looked into from 2021 by the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, it's very helpful. One of the things that they said that really motivated people to run for local office is the encouragement from people around them. So it's very much like someone, maybe your neighbor, your family, recognizing that you have expertise and great ideas to contribute to the community. And it's that kind of encouragement that really motivates people to run for local office. So I think there's that mindset of volunteering that is really foundational. Again, going back to the idea of the amateur status of elected office, I think there is a lot of willingness to overcome a huge learning curve that really contributes to the most successful local officials that I have seen. Again, there's no requirement. You're absolutely welcome to win an election, go into an office, and really learn to do things as you go, so long as you have that drive to really learn about everything that makes local government work.
And for some offices, there are things like trainings that you can do, like, again, once you're already in office.
There are plenty of resources everywhere, and they are optional, but they're absolutely abundant if you look for them. And I think lastly, perhaps a collaborative attitude is very important because there are conflicting interests and needs everywhere. If you think about, it just in your street, your neighbors might want different things about what happens to a tree. Just multiply that by 10 or even 100 is what you probably will be responsible for as a local official. But if you are the kind of person who are interested in solving problems, right, bringing people to the table and making things happen, I think local office could be a great place to kind of help improve your community.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
So let's say someone's listening right now and they're feeling maybe a little inspired.
That's great.
Right? Walk me through the basics of running for office here in Pennsylvania. Like, what do you need to do or know just to get started?
Sure. So, making that decision is a big step. And I think the first critical step is to get on the ballot. The deadline is Tuesday, March 11th. So if you're listening, this is a great time to get your foot in the door. You have to gather signatures to fill out your nomination petition. All of these packets and paperwork are available at county election offices. You can find a lot of resources from the Department of State online.
And we're also talking about this too, because it's today, but also because we want to give people the notice and the awareness that, yes, there's a big deadline today, but these elections are happening all the time. If you do feel inspired, you have some time, try soon, get started right now.
Absolutely. There is an option after today to start a write-in campaign, and we have seen many, many people successfully run write-in campaigns. So even if today's deadline passed and you feel a passion to run this year, it's not too late. Again, talk to your county election office because they will have all the resources to help you get on the ballot. And I think ultimately it's really about making the decision, thinking why you want to run for local office, and working on the next step, which is creating a campaign, letting people know why you want to be elected.
Which one do you think comes first? For a lot of people, I think maybe they think I could hold an office, either in a support role or as an executive of some kind. Again, on a local level. Sometimes I think you feel that calling before you know what you actually want to serve in, the position, and then you have to figure out, is it available? Am I eligible? That kind of thing. Which do you think should come first in that chicken or egg? Should you have a position in mind, or should you feel the passion to run?
It's a very personal journey, and not having personally run for office, I think
but you cover a lot of politicians and electeds, man.
There is no wrong answer. I think, you want to ultimately have both the drive to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm interested in. I have found that a lot of, especially first timers, when they run for office, it helps them to just go to the public meetings of the board that you want to serve on, right?
Oh, that's a great idea. You maybe want to be on the school board, and then you go to a meeting or two and you're like, wow, this is boring. I don't want to do this. Or maybe you're totally jazzed by it and you're like, I want to sit at that table. I want to decide.
Right? You might decide that 4-hour public meeting is my passion. I love to hash it all out in front of the public. That is great. And I think, just having a sense of what does it really look like? What are the responsibilities? What are the things that, you as a member of the public want to see happen, and how could that be achieved when you're getting into office? All of those things, I think, are questions that would help inform a decision as big as running for local office. Again, you have some time.
Yeah, I will say, you've felt the call. You have picked a spot where maybe you can serve, opposed or unopposed. You get signatures. Then what happens?
So you have to file the signatures, the petitions. You might have to pay a fee depending on the office that you're serving. Get that in the door. You might have to file some campaign finance reporting. The requirements really vary. So I always point people to their county election office, because those are the people who can answer your question in terms of eligibility, requirements, making sure you're following the steps. And then I think it's campaign time, right? It's really time to get out there and let people know about your passion, why you're running, what are the things that you would like to do, and working with voters to try to run a successful campaign.
I mean, do you have any pro tips as, a pretty seasoned observer of these things, of things that help people maybe get their message out versus things that you could maybe avoid?
I think when I interact with candidates, I'm interested in finding out, number one, their reasons to run, and secondly, their understanding of the office they're seeking. Like you said, Megan, if you want to run for the treasurer, but you have no idea what the treasurer is supposed to do, I think that means to me that as a candidate, you have a lot of catching up to do. I think if you have candidates in, a high stake race like the Pittsburgh mayor, if candidates are talking about specific visions or goals, what they want to do, all of that, I would ask them to articulate how those goals can be achieved, what is required, because that would really illustrate to you as a voter what kind of a path this person might take your community on. And so those are some really fundamental questions that I think candidates should be able to explain to voters.
Do you care about past work experience? Does that matter?
I think it could really be helpful. For example, if we're looking for a tax collector and this is someone coming from a background of finance, that is obviously very, very helpful. And I think when you're thinking about the other kind of bodies like a township board of supervisors, the question of experience becomes a little bit more interesting, because many, many different types of experience can inform the policymaking, the decision-making of a board of supervisors, since they have so many varying responsibilities in those offices.
Yeah. What about endorsements? Do you think do you think that's a thing that prospective candidates should try to court?
I think that would be best left for campaign managers to answer.
You got to find a campaign manager too, though.
That's right. I mean, it really depends on how you want to run a campaign. And just like your reason for running for office itself, how you want to run a campaign is a very, very personal decision.
Well, Min, we will stay focused on your reporting. I know you've got a lot of elections to keep your eyes on ahead of the primary on May 20th. Thank you, as always.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Reminder that deadline to register to vote here in Pennsylvania is May 5th. That is to vote, not to run for office. And the primary is, of course, May 20th. You can find more of Min's work at Spotlight PA. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon. I should have read it once before doing this. I came in and did it cold after living in potato chip land for a while.